right now. Today is the day that you choose to change the rest of your life. It is time to turn your setback into the greatest comeback story ever told, and nobody is more capable than you. This is the Ranting Weight Watcher podcast, the future #1 weight loss podcast in the world. I am your host, Donato Russo. I hope you enjoy the show today. If this is your first time here and you enjoy the show, please subscribe and spread the word of the Ranting Weight Watcher podcast wherever you are and to whomever will listen. If you'd like to connect on social media or wherever else, check out my Linktree page, Linktree/the Ranting Weight Watcher. Let's connect today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 213 of the Ranting Weight Watcher podcast. If this is your first time here, I want to welcome you to the show. If you enjoy it, please consider subscribing. If the app that you're using to listen to the show allows you to write a review or rate the show, please consider writing a review and leaving a 4-star or 5-star rating. Doing this will promote the podcast growth by updating an algorithm, which in turn will make it easier for anyone else looking for a weight loss or related podcast that is using the same app as you. One of the best things you could do to support this podcast is to literally tell anyone you know that is in the same position we are all in, trying to live a healthy life. Tell them about the show. Show them how to find it. We have a new financial supporter, Miriam. Thank you so much for becoming a brand new supporter of the podcast. I very much appreciate and thank you for taking the time out of your day, out of your life to listen to what I have to say, and then to not only just listen, but to also support the show financially. Thank you so much for all you do. I want to give a special thanks to all of the financial supporters of the podcast. Thank you so much for considering the Ranting Weight Watcher podcast a worthy investment of your hard-earned money. If you are interested in becoming a financial supporter of this podcast, there is a Linktree link in the description of every podcast episode. When you click it, you will be taken to a website where you will see a button that says Become a Financial Supporter. Click that button and you will be given the options available so that you can choose from there. Well, let's not waste any more time. Let's get into this! Journey updates. I am down this week, 3.6 pound loss. Total loss since January 2019 is 177.6 pounds. Total pounds remaining to get to the 200 pound milestone is 22.4 pounds. So something happened to me this past weekend, and it made me think about how often in the last almost 6 years at this point have I really faced being imbalanced? Have I faced trying to find balance and having faced finding some sort of balance? And each step along the way, there were different levels in each of those spaces. I've talked about it many times, the beginning of the journey and how it changed throughout. And I always called them like the different levels of getting through it. And each level in itself had to have its own way of becoming balanced in that area. I talked to you guys about balance last week, and I kind of want to get more into it because of what happened over the weekend, that I kind of had to check myself. I had a, kind of like a, hey, what are you really thinking here? What are you doing? In the beginning, I talk about it often that I was very results driven. If the scale result didn't go in my direction, I was very irrational, emotional. I was like a toddler throwing a tantrum, being obsessed with figuring out what I did wrong. You see, the scale going up or staying the same was automatically an indication that I did something wrong. And the voices in my head all declared this, that I was the problem. There was no, hey, it's not you, this is the way life goes. It was, it's only you, it can't be anybody else. Now, part of that was my inconsistent behavior. See, when things went right, I got relaxed. When things went wrong, I got rigid. And I'm sure that there's plenty of other people hearing that and know that when things are going well, you tend to get relaxed. This is kind of what I was talking about last week when I talked about the pendulum swinging all the time. That the way these systems are designed, they tell you you can keep these things in your life because they know so long as you keep these certain foods in your life, there are always going to be swings. There's going to be a season of gaining weight and a season of losing weight because of your emotional attachment to these food items. But it's not just about emotional attachments to food items either. It seems that your emotions can become attached to everything. We tell the world that the scale doesn't define us, and yet it causes an emotional reaction every time you step on it. The voices that visit you during these times, if you are in this stage where you step on the scale and you hear these voices, are the voices blaming what you don't do? What are they saying? Are they just simply insulting you? Oh, you're nothing, you're nobody, you're a loser. You'll never do this. You're worthless. This is not for you. Just give up. Is it destructive like that? Is it more like, hey, if you would track, if you would actually do this, if you would actually do that, is it condemning where it is questioning your work ethic? Is it pointing out to you the things you do not do? The things you do not do well? Or is it just saying, you'll never be anything? Because the other way, if it's questioning what you're doing, and you say, well, if you tracked better, you'd be having better results. If you weighed and measured, you'd have better results. Then it becomes, well, what is the truth, right? If the voices are saying things like that, what is the truth of the situation? Because if any of those things is true, then it becomes up to you to correct them. But if it sounds more like the second voice, more destructive, then you're not really getting anything from that. You're only perpetuating the swing by entertaining the voice. So I went through how much time like this. It was definitely over a year that I spent like this. But it started to change about 8 months in. When I started to introduce becoming active in my life, I didn't foresee that this decision would blatantly show me the difference between striving for perfection or striving for consistency. I had no idea that was coming at that moment. But 8 months in, I decided it's time to start getting active. So I make this plan that I'm going to walk for 15 minutes. And I'm going to do it 3 times a week. I'm not going to leave my parking lot. And at the end of the 15 minutes, I'm just going to walk back in the house. I'm just going to circle the parking lot for 15 minutes, 3 times a week. And I'm going to come back in the house. And I woke up before anybody else in the house woke up. And I did it. On the first day, I realized 15 minutes wasn't really anything. And I could easily do 20. So I did it for 20 minutes, 3 times a week. And I set it for 8 weeks of time. All of this time, as time went on, when 20 minutes turned into 30 minutes, when 30 minutes turned into 45 minutes, when 45 minutes turned into leaving the parking lot and walking the rest of the neighborhood, when walking the rest of the neighborhood turned into going to the park that I've always wanted to walk to and walking through the entire park. During all of these stages, I didn't realize that I was creating a work ethic that did no longer pay attention to the scale as a success point. Instead, the scale became a barometer of trends, which technically it should always be, but the way the systems are designed, they are the definition of your success or failure. As much as they can create a scale result now between surgery, drug injections, whatever the case may be, they can create scale results. For some reason, somehow, the scale still holds its value even though the result can be created. It doesn't make sense to me that it would hold such value if it's being manufactured. This is me talking to you with the mind I have now. When I was getting gastric bypass surgery, I thought very differently. Every time the scale went down, I was a success story until it no longer went down. And then it started going up. Very slowly, but surely, started going up. And no matter how much I tried to rationalize, the uptrend couldn't be ignored. 15 years later, you guys know, I'm joining WW because I gained nearly all the weight back. But as I started defeating these voices, as I started creating consistent effort in working out, I realized that I can apply this idea of consistency to everything. And even if it was imperfect, it would still be okay because it was consistent. So I started to devise ways to implement this idea of consistent tracking, consistent weighing and measuring, consistent moving. How could it be applied so that even if it was imperfect, success can be found and always improved if needed to be improved, and the work could be depended on? During this whole process of trying to apply this ideology that came with building consistent effort with activity, when I tried to apply that to everything else, I thought, how can I do this? How can I make it so I'm imperfect but consistent in tracking? This is what you always hear me tell you guys, that if you eat 21 meals a week, 19 of them are tracked. I did that on purpose. If you get 19 of them tracked accurately, and you get 20 and 21, they're tracked, but they're not very accurate, they're not perfect, you will find success in this area. The same thing with weighing and measuring the food you eat. Out of those 21 meals, if 19 of those meals is weighed and measured accurately, it won't be a big deal if the two meals, 20 and 21, are not. Concentrate on Monday through Friday and Saturday and Sunday morning and lunch, and then use Saturday and Sunday night to be relaxed in the effort. That if I got those 19 meals done right, 20 and 21 shouldn't hurt too much. Concentrate on the majority and let the anomalies fall where they may. Not only did I apply this theology there, I ended up applying it toward how I handled the holidays. Everything was to concentrate on the majority and let the minority fall where it may. The holiday mission challenge I created was based on that ideology. We spend the entire month of November freaking out about Thanksgiving and trying to think of a way we can stay on task on Thanksgiving. There are 30 days in November. We don't give any consideration to any of the other days. We only give consideration to the one day that we know we're going to lose control on. The whole month is a success or a failure based on how we handle one day in the 30-day month. My theology states that if you get 29 of those days right, your pain in that area would be minimized, because one day out of 30 is not going to cause you to lose your mind. This is coming to you from the guy who has never had a weigh-in after Thanksgiving be a loss. Thanksgiving is always a Thursday. My weigh-in day is a Saturday. The Saturday after Thanksgiving has never been a loss. It's never been a stay the same. It's always been a gain. But how I started, that game was a failure. And I ruined everything. And now, it's all about the rest of the month. My entire concentration is going after everything else I can control and doing my best on the holiday. I'm not going to worry about it as much. If I want some more stuffing, I'm going to have some more stuffing because I got the other 29 days right. It's not going to matter. Maybe this one weigh-in of this entire month would be a gain. If you're controlling everything you can control, the results come when they come. But if you're not, then start controlling what you can control. Don't judge the entire month on one day where who's going to have that much control on Thanksgiving? There are foods on the table you only see once a year. What control are you going to have? People like to believe in the illusions they create regarding one day, where the real success is getting the other 29 as close to perfect as possible. If that one day was the only day you let loose and had a good time and ate whatever you wanted and didn't worry about it, you would have the other 29 to stand on as your backbone. You'd be able to say, this is my foundation. This is what I created. Thanksgiving is the anomaly. When creating all of these things, in the process, the voices in your head that guide the way you think, they get quieter. They don't have much of a power anymore over you. They can't call you a failure if you track 19 out of 21 meals. You just can't. They can't call you a failure if you weighed and measured 19 of 21 meals. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't go that way. Because what is the truth? The scale went up. You're a failure. I'm not a failure. I tracked 19 of 21 meals. You're a loser. I'm not a loser. I weighed and measured 19 of 21 meals. And when you do that and multiply it by the entire month, how could you be a loser? How could you be a nobody? How could you say, I'm never going to get there? If you look at the entire month of November, and you could say, I did it this way every day this month, and I relaxed on this one day. How can you say it? You can't. It's a lie. The voices that are condemning you are lying to you. This is your foundation, your work, what you accomplished. The voices won't stop coming. They just won't have the power anymore that they used to. Each step of the way, the voices take different tactics. If you're doing well, the voices sound convincing. This is why the pendulum swings back to a gain cycle. Because the voice says, look how good you're doing. Go out, enjoy yourself, have some drinks tonight. Don't worry about tracking. And that starts with one weekend a month with the friends. Then it becomes 2 weekends a month. Then maybe it's not just drinking. Maybe it's drinking and then going out to whatever diner after you spend your time in the bar. And each time you do this, each time something changes, the voice is convincing and saying, it's okay because you're doing this well. That's how the voices change. And that's how the pendulum swings back. Because we don't distinguish the voice right away. We don't call it out for what it is. We allow it to influence the direction of what we do things. I went to the gym, so it's okay that I go out to eat. I went to the gym, so it's okay that I have some drinks tonight. I went to the gym, so it doesn't matter that I'm going to the diner after and eating food at 2 o'clock in the morning after taking how many calories in all of the drinks. It doesn't matter. But then when the results show up for those actions, because the results always show up, then the other voice comes back. The voice of failure. The same voice that convinced you it was okay just goes back to condemning you. Why am I talking about the voices? Why am I pointing out the different cycles? Why am I showing you all of this? Because even now, where I am recognizing the voice is still here. The voice is still here. When I told you guys last week that I had to listen to my body, you see, I realized that my obsession with consistency had the opportunity to become unhealthy last week. So even though I listened to my body, there was the rest of the week to come to, right? My Fitbit measures my workout schedule starting Sunday, ending Saturday. I cannot change that to be the same as my weigh-in day, which makes it from Saturday to the next Friday. I can't change it to that. So my weigh-in day goes with 1 week. My workout week goes with another week. We're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. I now present to you the Ranting Weight Watcher Accountability Creed. If you choose this day to say this creed, you are accountable to me, the author. You are also accountable to all of those before you who have taken the creed, and all of those after you who will take the creed. But most of all, you are accountable to yourself. Now recite with me the Accountability Creed. Nothing can stand in my way because I choose to be unstoppable. My challenges crumble in my presence because I choose strength when I am weak. My insecurities have no power over my life because I choose confidence in the face of fear. I own every last one of my mistakes because I choose growth over mediocrity. The mirror and the scale are powerless because I move forward in spite of the result. Circumstances are not obstacles because I see solutions instead of problems. The demons of my past can no longer torment me because I choose to renew my mind daily. All things are possible as long as I believe, because if God is for me, who can be against me? This is the creed I declare each day. It is about what I do, not what I say. I will learn the work that needs to be done. I will never stop, even when I've won. I will work consistently, no matter the cost. I refuse to believe that all hope is lost. I will work when I want to. I will work when I don't. I will work when they are cheering. I will work when they won't. I will work when it's easy. I will work when it's hard. The atonements that I've made are made with no regard. I will work when it's cold. I will work when it's hot, because choices have consequences, justified or not. When I think I know it all, I will start back at one, because regardless of what I think, the work is never done. And from this moment forward, when times are tough, I choose to believe that I am enough. And we are back. Thanks for sticking with me. So I tell you that I listened to my body on Monday, and I didn't go and strength train. I strength trained on Wednesday and Friday. So 2 out of the 3 were accomplished. And then the voice visits me. It visited me as a salesman. And the salesman was, "You're feeling pretty good, man. Look. Your Fitbit resets on Sunday. There's still 1 day left in the week. The next workout in your journal has nothing to do with what you did on Friday. Doing that workout won't be a problem. It'll be fine. And you know what will happen? If you do it, you'll be able to tell the world that in spite of how you felt on Monday, you remained consistent." That moment where it said you remained consistent, it was like a red flag in my head. I said to myself, everything makes sense that I could do this. Everything. My workout goes from Sunday to Saturday. I can actually do this. I'm feeling good enough that after walking on Saturday, I could come home and at some point in the afternoon do another strength training and get 3 in before the end of the week. Those words that came from the voice, the words of, "You will remain consistent." I'm on my way to 24 weeks of strength training at this point. Phase 1 was twice a week. I did that for 8 weeks. Phase 2 was 3 times a week. I did that for 8 weeks. Phase 3, the number was staying at 3 times a week, but I was adding back walking days. So on the same day that I strength train on a Monday, that afternoon, I would also walk. That was the idea for phase 3. Trying to get it back to what it used to be. 5 days walking, 3 days strength training. But the voice had the nerve to say, I would remain consistent, which means that missing this 1 day would ruin it. I know 8 weeks at 2 times a week, 8 weeks at 3 times a week, plus another few. I already know that's consistent. And 1 week at 2 times when it should be 3 isn't consistent. It's an anomaly. It's not the rule, it's the exception. Do you understand what I'm telling you? So the voice was making it as so it would become the rule. But I know in my head, it's not the rule, it's the exception. You may think I sound crazy right now. You may think that talking to myself and reasoning with myself like this and being skeptical with my own voices in my head, you may think that all sounds nuts. But it's not as if those voices don't exist in your head. And it's not as if you've never talked back. So stay with me. I asked the voice what was more important. Was it more important that I felt good enough to work out? Or was it more important that I would be able to say I remained consistent in spite of what happened at the beginning of the week? What was more important? I knew the answer to that question right away. I knew that it would feel much better to be able to tell you guys right now in this recording that regardless of how I felt on Monday, I remained consistent. I was flexible and I did my strength training on Saturday. I got the 3 days in. The streak doesn't stop. That would be much more appealing than the fact that I felt good enough to do it. It wasn't my benefit. It was all based on being able to say I did it. I have not made decisions like this often. I've not been in the position to make decisions like this often. But as I came home from my walk on Saturday morning, I thought to myself that out of principle, I should not do strength training. I said, what is it you said to them last week? What'd you tell them? You sat at this microphone and you said, I listened to my body. And then what? So you'll listen to your body just long enough till you come to the opportunity that you can make up for it anyway? What's the goal here? Is the obsession becoming consistent work now? Your ability to say that you're consistent no matter what is becoming the obsession? You told them you listened to your body. You presented it as if it's okay. But now you're entertaining ideas that it was never really okay. In the name of living up to what I say to you guys, as good as I felt on Saturday, I purposely did not strength train. It was an executive decision to say you're going to live up to what you said on the podcast. You're not going to live up to your desire to be able to say, I did it anyway. Because doing the strength training would be only for that. It would not be for the joy of getting stronger. It would be only to be able to say, I remain consistent in spite of. Now, many of you would say, well, what's wrong with that? That's that David Goggins mindset, right? And I'm not saying that it's not healthy to have that mindset. I have created a lot of success with that mindset. If you don't know who David Goggins is, he does a lot of motivational talks. And a lot of it has to do with fitness. And it has to do with defeating the thoughts in your head. And basically it has to do with defeating them at all costs. That as long as you're not in a hospital bed, you show up and you do whatever you need to do that week. If you're sitting there with a sprained ankle, use a cane and get that 3-mile walk in. Right? It's that kind of no-nonsense mindset. And I could see that mindset has so many possibilities of turning against me that I have to check them for where they are. Because the voice of David Goggins would say, you should have did it anyway. Even though you were hurting, you should have did it anyway. You should have never listened to your body. You should have done it anyway. I could see that attitude in me. And I could see that even that attitude has to find balance. That's the whole reason I'm talking to you about this today. that no matter what part of your journey you might be in, if you're in the beginning and you're irrational because of scale results, if you're somewhere in the middle and you're still trying to find your way to consistency, if you're so consistent that your consistent level of work has become a source of pride that you need to puff your chest with, all of it, regardless, needs to find balance. When I said no to myself on Saturday, and I purposely did not strength train on Saturday, even though I felt good enough to, and had plenty of time that I could have, I chose not to. I chose not to tame this mindset, because that's not balance either. I'm not saying that that mindset is wrong. I'm just saying that everything needs balance. There are so many bodybuilders in this world, and so many of them are so obsessed with becoming bigger, stronger, that they are just as unhealthy as the people who can't stop eating and they're on shows like My 600-Pound Life. They are unhealthy for different reasons. They are the opposite level of the imbalance, but they are just as imbalanced as the people who can't control their eating. These guys end up becoming so obsessed with becoming stronger, bigger, more massive, that they do stuff to their body to alter the possibilities. They inject themselves with things that would create a situation where they would get bigger, unnaturally bigger. And in the process, they would be endangering their lives just as much as the person eating 5, 6, 7, 10,000 calories a day and sitting on the couch, can't move. There's no balance either way. Of all the most famous bodybuilders, see, I did this because I actually started really admiring bodybuilders. And I'm not saying that I want to become a bodybuilder, but I started to really admire their work. And much so their work ethic. And I wanted to emulate them on every way possible. I couldn't ignore that all of those behaviors led to the use of anabolic steroids in a lot of them. I forget his name now, but this was years ago at this point. One of the guys that I was following, man, was he a nice guy. I mean, you would expect bodybuilders of this type to not have the personality that this guy had. They would just be obsessed with working out, and he was very much obsessed with working out. But they showed him on a personal level, too. It wasn't just the gym version of him. And he was funny. He was this likable guy. He is like the Incredible Hulk, but not angry. And not green. He did the same thing that I hear people in workshops do all the time. He said things that he does, but he said it in a way that it sounded cute. Like you hear in workshops all the time, somebody says, I got into the cookies again. Hee hee hee. Like it's just me being me. I love me some cookies. And he did essentially the same thing. He was in the doctor's office being filmed for this documentary or whatever. And the doctor's talking to him about, you need to stop with these steroids. And he goes for a return visit to the doctor. And the doctor wants to follow up on the discussion. And he does that. It's just me being me. I enjoy using steroids. As strong as he was, as funny as he was, as much of a good guy as he was, he didn't make it to 40. He died in his 30s. We see these people not make it to their 40s, and it's because they're 3 and 4 and 500 pounds. Nobody ever talks about the exact opposite of that, where the guy became so obsessed with getting bigger and stronger that he didn't make it to 40 because of that. So being unbalanced can be everywhere. Now some of you would probably be asking, well, how do I become balanced? Becoming balanced still starts with you becoming consistent. If you need to, you can go to my website, therantingweightwatcher.com. There's a document you can download. If you scroll down on the webpage, there are a bunch of documents you could download, but this one particular one is called the Checklist Challenge. And the Checklist Challenge is essentially the skeleton of how I make things consistent in my life. If you're not tracking, phase 1 starts you with tracking. As you get into phase 2, you introduce weighing and measuring. Each phase building off of the previous phase. Getting better and better and better, and never giving up on what you've already accomplished. If phase 1, you're tracking 3 days of the week, phase 2, you're measuring those 3 days, and you're adding 2 more days of tracking. So 5 days of tracking and 3 days weighing and measuring. Phase 3, it's 5 days weighing and measuring, 7 days tracking. So it builds on top of itself every step of the way. And every single phase is 8 weeks long. And you say, well, I already do this. I already track 7 days a week. Okay, then skip to the phase where it's the weighing and measuring is complete, and go through each one and say, well, where am I really at here? What phase can I start with? 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, and go from there. But stick to the 8-week increments. Do all that, and then maybe you're facing the same thing I'm facing. The voice that convinces you that it's better to say to the world, you did it in spite of. In the process, you're creating an imbalance in the direction you didn't foresee. But hopefully then you'll have heard this message and know that even that side of the spectrum requires balance. And you'll have to find your way back. I could give you the steps. I can't make you walk them. All I can do is give you a method, and you can try it. And if it needs to be adapted according to your life, then adapt it. But keep the skeleton. What good is all of this if all we're going to do is create new, unhealthy ways to deal with everything? If we never think of the idea of creating balance in our life, all we're ever going to do is create new, unhealthy ways of doing things. We talk about how many times transference in this podcast. When you're addicted to food and that addiction transfers to the alcohol, to cigarettes, to anything. It could even be an addiction to doing the work that makes you to be able to stand up on a podium and say, look what I did. That feeling that you can stand up on the podium with confidence and say, look what I did. is just as addictive. There's still no balance there. And now more than ever, I can see that no matter what part of this life I'm living, whether I'm in the cycle of gaining, whether I'm in the cycle of losing, whether I'm in the cycle of transforming my strength and becoming a man I never foresaw, that no matter what I'm looking at, no matter what I'm doing, I need to find the balance in that place. Balance will always be necessary, and it will be different no matter where I am in my journey. And for you, it will be different no matter where you are in your journey. So I encourage you that no matter where you are right now, start to find balance. And balance doesn't mean allowing yourself to do things in the wrong direction, because when you take risks that end up making the pendulum swing in the other direction, you can bet your sweet ass that the pendulum will swing if those behaviors become consistent. All we can do is keep track and keep ourselves accountable. And not just accountable to the world, but accountable to yourself. Call yourself out on your own nonsense and say, why is it you're doing this? What is the real reason? What is the real benefit? Keep yourself in check, because no one can call yourself out like you. Your closest friends can call you out, but even you know yourself better than your closest friends. So no matter what, the key to all of this is finding balance, no matter the cost. I love each and every one of you. God bless you all.